Hello, Evan Rose here. I'm in the mooring field. It's mid-April. I left the marina earlier this month, actually just this week, and I'm the only boat in the mooring field. It's a bit lonely out here. It's a bit early in the season to do a lot of sailing, but I did get a little bit of a sail between leaving DeMillo's, the marina, and coming here to the mooring field across the river. I took one of my dock mates out for a short sail, Christian, who had he has very little, if any, experience sailing, but he had found himself living in this marina on a boat about my size, and will be moving to Booth Bay in Maine later this month. So he's got a bit of learning to do, but it was good to go out. We had some gusty winds, and I just flew the jib in a fractional sloop that this is. That's not a hugely powerful sail, but it was gusty enough or windy enough that we could sail out a couple miles, an hour and a half or so, and come back. Living on the mooring is a little bit challenging for me. It's different than living on a dock. It has its advantages and disadvantages. One of the advantages is it's very private, and it's a little bit safer in a lot of ways during storms. You don't have to worry about rubbing against the dock and worry about lines and so forth. These moorings are pretty stable. So you sway with the storm and you rock with it, but you're pretty much not going to crash your boat against the dock like I did as depicted in the first episode of this vlog. One of the other advantages is that I have $1 million skyline outside, and it's absolutely just a wonderful, peaceful place to be. One of the disadvantages, though, is that I don't have shore power anymore, so all of this is running off the batteries, and I have to row in whenever I need to do anything in town, including showering or any of that. So it's a little bit more of a commitment than just going and walking on the dock. And you actually can't do it if it's too stormy out, or if it's rainy you have to do it. It's just a little bit inconvenient and wet. But yeah, rowing my little hardshell dinghy back and forth as my commute. So it's still early in the year to be committed to a big sailing trip, although in a couple of weeks I will be sailing to New York and back, and I'll be presenting that on these vlogs. But for now, what I thought I'd do is take some time during this episode to share with you a trip that I did in January. In January, I took a train to western U.S., to the Las Vegas area and western Grand Canyon to do some geologic research, and I have some footage from that I think might be mightily entertaining. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode, and stay tuned. My name is Evan. I live on a sailboat in the Gulf of Maine, even in winter. I'm an earth scientist, a policymaker, and planner for a turbulent future. I live efficiently, deliberately, and in beauty. There is so much that needs to change about how we live impactfully on this planet. This vlog guides us through that change, through science, story, and song. The choice to take a train from Boston to the western United States is a matter of going train forward, that is, to fly less for such long travel. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that the Amish don't fly, but still travel like train, because that technology existed in 1858. The Amish are respectfully compliant with the laws of the English, but rebellious Amish teens would push the limits of masking requirements, maybe leaving their garbage behind them as their way to stick it to the man. I took a bus from Portland to the Boston train station. Some of the Amish weren't wearing masks at all. Boarding a train is much less stressful than boarding a plane at an airport. I spent my New Year's Eve on the train. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Trains are quite spacious. They're commonly not full. Coach cars have lots of room, and there are plenty of open seats. Traveling through the countryside in western Massachusetts is quite pretty. Of course, all the traffic gives way to you, so you feel extra privileged. The high population of Amish folks on the train were not tending to notice that we were still in a pandemic that was at a peak. And these are the original anti-vaxxers, right?
Pardon me, I'm going to try again.
So fortunately, there weren't any reported outbreak as a result of this exposure. Young Amish men don't wear beards. They grow beards when they get married. So it's kind of like some Muslim rites in that way. Traveling into the evening into the Rust Belt is maybe not the choicest of American scenery. There are refineries and coal trains and various trackside displays of industrial squalor. Sleeping in coach is not unlike sleeping on an airplane, but more spacious and comfortable. And of course, there's no turbulence or seatbelts, no pilot saying when you can or cannot move around. Yes, it's mid-April, and I'm using the fire. It's still a little bit chilly outside. It's been down in the 30s in the evening, and the wood I'm using in the fire this time of year doesn't have to be super hot wood. I don't expect to have the fire burn all night long. So I use pine pieces that were leftovers from people, the armature and framing for people's shrink wrap. So I cut those up and burn them. It's quite a seasonable thing, being scrappy like this. And out here on the mooring field, I don't have shore power, so I'm concerned about extending the life of my batteries, my DC house batteries, as long as possible. And so I use an oil lamp when I can. This little oil lamp I got at Rennie's, which is a main sort of five and dime store. I got this little oil lamp for $2. And it's a lamp oil lamp, but I learned that if you cut the little collar off of where the wick comes out and close that gap between the wick and the oil, you can fill this all the way up and warm the oil. I warm it near the wood stove. Don't boil it or anything, but warm the oil so it lowers its viscosity. Then you can burn just straight vegetable oil. So that's what I do, is I burn not paraffin, which is a petroleum product, but just vegetable oil, like canola oil in here. So that's my oil lamp. And it lasts for about an hour and a half before it cools off, and I could keep it going by warming it up again, but I let that be my timer. Anyway, let's continue with the story, shall we? The next morning, you wake up speeding through the backyards of Heartland America in the upper Midwest, northern Indiana and Illinois, and arrive at the glorious Chicago train station. It was absolutely resplendent with this gorgeous tree. Chicago Union Station, built nearly a century ago, is a gorgeous monument to the wonders of transportation at the start of the age of technology and peak industry, when the Wild West was subdued and jazz and blues and airplanes and telephones brought a vibrancy and modernity to cities like Chicago. The tree was adorned with railroad company logos from the past and present. The Amtrak routes all have names, some of which were adopted from the previous passenger service. The Super Chief was the flagship passenger service of the AT and SF, the Santa Fe Railroad. It was the glamorous route, carrying Hollywood stars from Chicago to California. They were all Pullman cars in those days, but modern sleeper cars are fancy enough. A big blizzard gripped the Midwest. We entered it just as we left Chicago. Scores of flights were canceled. across the country. The train sped through it undaunted. Sleeper car ticket holders have meals included with the fare.
$5.30?
Yes.
Right here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Again, no seatbelts are required for train travel.
Yeah, I can't.
Fort Madison,
They need to
Iowa.
clean this up.
I can make it.
You sure? Be careful.
There's a porter assigned to each car. They set up the beds while you are at dinner and take special pride in their car. Sleeping on a speeding train is one of the coolest sleeping experiences you can have. Everyone yields to you as you rock and sway in the gentle slumber at 90 miles an hour.
It's 6 a.m. Dealing with a storm that came up just about an hour or so ago on the mooring. That loud sound of banging or whacking is the jib sheets whacking against the cockpit. Pretty intense little storm. I feel safer here than I do on the docks, though, because I'm not rubbing against the docks, but it's loud, real loud. There's white caps all around me, and I'm swaying and rocking quite a bit. So it's one of the hazards of living on a boat, I guess. All right, this should let up in about a couple of hours, but I guess I'll be awake and not really thinking about much else except my earthquake of a home right now. All right, let's continue with the story.
Sunrise over the Great Plains was spectacular. Outside, in the wake of the blizzard, the air temperatures were below zero. Weather stripping in one of the doors revealed how cold the air was outside. There were few stops along the way. The train was delayed a bit because the cold rails get brittle in the extreme cold, and there's a lower speed limit under these conditions. A longer stop at La Junta, Colorado allowed us to get off the train and walk around a bit and see the train that's been our transport and our hotel. La Junta will factor in a minor way in a future episode. For now, I'll just say that there will be a connection between La Junta and the yacht club where I have my mooring. The southerly route takes us through the Rockies of New Mexico with views of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains and cute little towns, tank towns like Raton, New Mexico, that were founded as a water source to refill steam engines. Raton's population has not grown appreciably since the 1920s. I'm a fairly recent transplant to New England. I have deeper roots in the Southwest, and this scenery really speaks to my soul. We arrived at about midnight in Flagstaff, Arizona, another tank town, but one that has grown quite a bit and continues to grow.
Beautiful. Got it.
I said goodbye to my porter and the train You know, it's pretty amazing to be able to fly across the country as big as the United States, in a day. Leave in the morning and arrive in the afternoon, or leave late in the evening and arrive early the next day. It is pretty phenomenal. But flying can be intimidating. It can be dehumanizing. People often wish for a short flight. Get it over with. Some are terrified to fly. Trains offer an experience, one that is enjoyable and low stress and much more environmentally sustainable. It may take an extra day or two on either side of travel, but it connects you more to this country. There's literally no flyover country on a train. I lived in Flagstaff for over 15 years. I know the place well. I know that the Motel du Beau is right by the train station. Built in the 1920s on Old Route 66, it's one of the first motels in the nation. It's had its heyday and decline over the decades, but it's finding new life as a quaint, authentic feature of Route 66 nostalgia. Well, this video took a couple of weeks to prepare and to edit, and I had a number of other things that I had to do in the meantime, including some adventures like living on board during a storm and taking care of some yacht club duties. This is where I have my summer mooring, is the Centerboard Yacht Club. My boat is right out there. And I'm preparing to set sail for New York this evening. It is after 7 p.m. and we just had a little rainstorm come through, and tonight a northerly wind is predicted to last all night and into the next day. So I'm going to use that northerly wind to my advantage and take a straight shot all the way to Cape Cod Canal. The upshot, and why I'm telling you this now, is because even as I share stories of these adventures, there are other adventures that are happening as I tell the story. So I thank you for watching, and I'll have some other episodes about that trip in January, about another Grand Canyon trip I did in April, and about this trip to New York. So thanks for tuning in.